Divarni, I think you have been had, tooken, hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, run amok. Julia Ruth, everyone is clocked. The only person who has not clocked this is you. Not just for this relationship, or is it a relationship? I don't know.
Am I the only one who's side-eyeing Maeve? I'm sorry, I have no empathy for her because she's been lashing out and throwing tantrums and has had this man find an excuse for why he doesn't want her, and suddenly she's playing victim. She's not a victim. She's not. Sadly, she's not. They had a fight before he left, and I think this is why she's so aggrieved and she's trying to make it seem like she is the victim, but she's not. The two of them know exactly that they were not serious about one another. They were going to play each other until they get to the end of the season, and now that he's packed off and gone and found an excuse, she is now playing, oh me, why me? And then I'm here for Paul. Paul read Julia Ruth for filth. I felt the second-hand embarrassment I had for her. You've been bamboozled, you've been hoodwinked, you've been played, you've been worked, there is nothing he didn't label it as. And the audacity for Julia Ruth, I don't always trade in the word narcissist, but Julia Ruth is so self-centered. She lacks the ability to sort of take accountability or self-reflect on what she's done. Everything that was said was just going over her head because it doesn't work with the narrative that she's after. And I think she can see her brand deals going out the window because of how the edit is going to look. I think this is why she keeps putting statements out. But anyway, I digress. Hey there. Thanks for stopping by. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. Click the like button. Turn on the notification bell for when I upload new videos, and definitely leave a comment. In this episode, I'll be reviewing Married at First Sight UK, Season 10, Episode 21. So you have all the couples, they've woken up. Obviously, it's after the dinner party. They're getting ready for the commitment ceremony, and everybody is in their feelings about exactly what's happening. You have Ashley and Leo. They're struggling with their connection because there's no emotional depth to their couple. This is why I always say when you go on Married at First Sight, try and avoid SCX. Get to know the person you're matched with, because now they've done the SCX. That's worked out for them, but they're now looking for other things, and there's nothing else they can hang their hats on. Stephen and Nelly, they're in a good space. Stephen is surprised. Well, they're both surprised that Julia Ruth brought Stephen into her mess. The fact that she said, she had a connection with him. She felt like she really liked him. And it's like Stephen cannot stand Julia Ruth, because Julia Ruth was the first person to pull him out of character and have him swearing and storming out. So the idea that she thinks they can go from that to suddenly making up, I don't get how delusional she is. Julia Ruth is having a conversation with Divarni. Divarni looks worn out. He looks worn out. He looks 100 years older than when he walked into the experiment. So there's this conversation with them saying it's not fake. What we have is real. We've really worked hard to build it, so we don't understand why everyone else is hypercritical. Everybody else is criticizing them. You have Rebecca and Bailey, you have Stephen and Nelly, everyone, Leah and Lee, they all don't understand why Julia Ruth is doing this, because she doesn't like this man. She's told everyone with ears to hear that she doesn't like him. So the audacity to say that, she now likes him, they're in a good space, everyone can see through the shenanigans. So I can't wait to see what happens. So everybody arrives for the, commitment ceremony. The experts are ready. Paul has his notes with him. He's got his folder. He's ready to read people for filth. First up, we had Leisha and Reiss. They say they're in a good space. They love spending time together. They chat a lot. They cook. You had, Leisha saying she needs Reiss to open up. He needs to be more open and he needs to be more spontaneous. She wants him to spice things up. He is saying, I'm not an electrical gadget that she can just turn on and off. So there was a conversation in regards to their intimacy and how they want to go about that. And sadly, they should have taken a page from Abigail and John, because they just went at it like rabbits, and now they're in this space whereby they're struggling, whereas Abigail and sort of John went through the intellectual route first. I think it's because of maturity. They're a bit older. These two are younger. They both chose to stay. Anyone surprised? No. They were always going to choose to stay, because Leisha and Reiss, I think, outside of the fact that she goes 100 miles an hour, if she can calm herself down a bit, I think they would work amazing as a couple. Next up, we had Lee and Leah. They said they've been they've been amazing this week. You had Leah saying that she really wants to thank the experts because whatever they did, it seemed to work because you had Lee being more vulnerable. They had an amazing date, but their whole week was tarnished with the events at the dinner party. So they were not happy with Julia Ruth. They really were not happy because they said, you had Leah say her intention was never to talk about anybody else on the couch apart from her and her partner. But what happened really put her off and really upset her. And it's like Julia Ruth does not have any friends in this group. I think as much as she's saying she's friends with Kia, I wouldn't be surprised if only Kia and Davide are her friends. But then when they see all the shenanigans she's been doing, they might turn on her. They both chose to stay. Am I surprised? No. They're in a good space, so it was bound to happen that they were going to choose to stay. Next up, we have Bailey and Rebecca. They say they had a tough time in the, with the love-hate challenge because Rebecca broke trust because they had an agreement that they wouldn't talk about anyone else in a romantic setting or about having emotions or anything else that nature. So I love that the experts were able to help them sort of dissect it and make sure that Rebecca understood why her husband was unhappy. She said, because of this challenge that they faced, it was enough for her to realize that she really likes Bailey because they had to spend the night in separate apartments, and spending the night in separate apartments was heartbreaking for Rebecca. She then professed her love. Bailey was excited. He kept saying to her, I love you, so that she could repeat it. And it was the cutest thing ever. I think seeing their disagreement makes it seem more real because it was a bit difficult to understand whether it was genuine or whether they were just putting on a performance. So I had root for love, so I'm happy that they did that. Next up was Grace and Ashley. Grace and Ashley, oh my God. Well, you can still see that Ashley is upset. Grace is almost sitting on Ashley's lap because she knows he's upset and she's trying to pacify him. So there was a conversation with him saying, I'm upset because she keeps twisting my words. I make a joke and I'm used to banter where if I say something, somebody else comes back at me with something else. Whereas with Grace, every time I say something, she has to pick it apart and say I've offended her in this way or that way. I feel like I'm constantly having to protect my character because since I came in, he's been fighting. And he really has been patient with Grace. Let us all remember at the wedding where he stood there for hours while Grace was throwing tantrums in the background and sort of having a mini crisis. So he has really tried his best. Grace said, she comes from Australia. I didn't know she was from Australia. So apparently she said her type of jokes are different. And it makes it seem like a lost in translation situation whereby there's a cultural difference where people don't understand each other. British people have a very sarcastic sense of humor. So if you don't understand it and if you don't know it, you wouldn't be able to sort of comprehend. And I think this is why Grace is struggling outside of her feminist agenda. This is the impression that I get. And I can see that she's struggling. I can see she's struggling. And she really is at this point likes Ashley, but she doesn't know how to change herself. I love that the experts called them out and said the two of you are dissecting everything and trying to see how you've been wronged and what's happened. You need to go and ask yourself, why do we always use humor when there's a crisis? And I think if they can do that, that will work in their favor. So they need to understand why they use humor when things are not going great to cover up. You had Ashley say he uses it to gloss over things. And it's like, okay, I get it. Maybe because he doesn't want to offend her or offend anyone, so he might be using humor, but this is going to be a steep battle for him to fight, an uphill battle. Anyway, they both chose to stay. Am I surprised? No. It makes sense that they would want to stay because they seem to, regardless of the problem they had, I don't think things are as bad as for them to pack their bags and go home. Nelly and Stephen were next. You had them say this was an improved week for them. They say the love-hate week was very good for them because it allowed them to dissect their marriage and sort of see what they needed to do in order to change. Stephen appreciated the fact that, Nelly has really prioritized him and puts his needs and wants first. She regretted the fact that she didn't stand up for him when the experts were calling him out. And so the experts were happy. I think part of it is him sort of playing manipulation games, but he's not as hardcore as someone like Julia Ruth. And I think this is why he's getting away with it. It then came out that apparently Julia Ruth was saying, yes, she said she wanted to marry Stephen. Now she said she's interested in Stephen. And it turns out that she's told everyone that she wants to stay 2 more weeks so that she can couple up with Stephen if they get partner swap. And it's like, oh my God, she really is trying her best. She's really trying her best to antagonize everyone, isn't she, Julia Ruth? You had Stephen say, I love the fact that Nelly is very caring. The Nelly that I saw on our wedding day is the Nelly that I love. He was asked and he sort of danced around that. It seems people are just using love as a code word just to stay in the show. That's the impression that I get. Anyway, they both chose to stay. Am I surprised? No. We had Abigail and John. They both said they wish the other person saw them in the way they saw each other, in the sense that John was saying, I wish Abigail saw herself in the way that I see her. Abigail, on her part, was saying the same thing. We know Abigail was played by that man that was married, that wasted her time. So it seems like it takes a lot for her to trust this. But she says, John is amazing. She's developing feelings for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they said that, they're falling in love. And apparently they had a conversation before they became physically intimate. This is amazing. They need to teach a masterclass, because people are very quick to satisfy their bodily urges without having conversations with the person. And then when it doesn't work out, then they start complaining, oh, me? Why did we do this? I am happy they sort of said that. On her part, Charlene was happy. She really was happy. They both chose to stay. No one was surprised. And then Maeve says she feels like she's in limbo. She feels like, she's second guessing everything. She likes the fact that Joe is an amazing person, but she thinks she's not being honest. And Ashley was sort of put in this sort of no-win situation, in the sense that he's trying to maintain confidence. On the other hand, he's also feels sorry for Maeve and the things that she's going through. And so I love that he didn't break confidence. Ashley, on his part, in his confessional, said he's torn. He's between a rock and a hard place. He can't sort of win whatever he does. But then he was able to give an opinion of what he thought of the Joe situation without sort of breaking trust, because he said, he doesn't think that Joe is in a headspace whereby he can give this woman what she needs, which is the truth. He's grieving his granddad. The last thing on his mind is sort of catering for somebody's feelings, someone that he barely knows. And so for her to expect him to give her every single thing she wants is being unrealistic. I'm surprised that we haven't heard anything about the argument, because she hasn't brought it to the experts that we clashed about anything. We don't know what they fell out about. We know they fell out, but we don't know what they fell out about, or unless I missed it. So I hope we find out about that. Next up was April and Leo. Well, you have April still asking for more depth. I want more depth. I want him to be inquisitive. Leo is saying he's struggling to be open. And it's like, maybe you should have kept it in your pants for a bit. And the two of you should have had conversations and realized whether or not it works, because it seems like he's very smitten. And I don't know whether that's the reason why he's sort of clamped up and doesn't want to disappoint her. I don't know. They both chose to stay. Surprised? No. You had David and Kia. They're doing very well. I feel like the conversation they had on their honeymoon in South Africa was the turnaround moment. And since then, Kia has felt comfortable because he knows what David wants from a relationship. And so this is why they are working. The experts actually asked them, what do you want from us? How can we help you? Because they are doing amazingly well. I think they have good communication. I think they really like the person they're matched with. They complement each other very well. So I love that. They both chose to stay. No one was surprised. And then came Julia Ruth and Divarni. Julia Ruth and Divarni, for me, I don't know how much more Divarni needs to hear before he leaves, because Paul was on smoke and Charlene was just chiming in and just putting in, enough wood to keep this fire burning. And I loved it, because he said, I want honesty and transparency. I want to know exactly what's been happening. Everybody found out that they've been physically intimate since the second week that they moved into their apartments. Leah nearly fell out of her chair because she said, so this girl has been bad-mouthing this guy while she's been busy doing bits with him. Make that make sense? And it's like, it doesn't make sense to anyone at all. It really doesn't. And it's very disappointing that she is wasting somebody else's time. You had Divarni say they spent 2-3 days apart, and then she came back and she was being vulnerable and open, and we worked through the issues we were having. And I love Paul because Paul said to him, was she being vulnerable or was she working you? Because she really knew what he wanted, and she gave him what he wanted in order to keep him in the show, because she wants to be on the show. The fact that you had Paul say, you've been bamboozled, you've been hoodwinked, you've been more or less, she's a con artist and she's conning you. And Julia Ruth couldn't say anything because every time Divarni tried to sort of get her opinion, you were told, no, we're speaking to you. Which I love. And the fact that they dressed her down in front of everyone. Mel, in the end, felt sorry for her. And they had to say, Julia Ruth, how do you feel about everybody sort of pointing fingers at you and sort of calling you out on certain behaviors? And it's like, everybody in the group agrees on one thing, because you even had Grace say to her, Julia Ruth, this is not fair. This man really likes you and you're playing with him. It's not fair. And it's not fair. I don't know how she can spin this after the show. She went in for fame. That I agree with Kia. She went in for fame and she thought whatever publicity she got was good publicity. She's been putting out statement after statement after statement. But at some point, the people are going to stop entertaining those statements. And I said this before when Sarah was being a jackass. And I said, at some point when Sarah or Stephen leave, Julia Ruth is stepping into the front and center. And this was painful to watch. It was really painful. So I can't wait for the conclusion. I really hope Divarni is man enough to pack up his bags and go home. But then when he goes home, I wonder who they'll make the villain, because apparently there's still more to come with Julia Ruth. So I wouldn't be surprised if Divarni stays. I have a feeling if he stays, at some point, the experts are going to kick them out. Anyway, thanks guys for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Click on the link in my video to watch my review from episode 20. Bye everyone.